Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Abito Zone. And I am glad that you guys were able to join and wanting to make sure that you guys have a good viewing pleasure experience. And as I'm learning through this, creating a channel, putting the stream together, putting the show together, it's definitely a lot of work. And wanted to thank all the people that did help me out. You guys know who you are, from the advices and the constant words of support. And hope everyone can be able to come in, join in, and join in the chat and create some feedback to try to make this as interesting as possible. But I wanted to thank everyone here for making this reality, and let's see how this goes off. I don't know how long I'll be doing this, but we'll see, you know, how this turns out. So the first things first, we wanted to go over and definitely track go over what happened with the Knicks yesterday, actually a couple of days ago, where they lost to the Cavs unexpectedly in a performance that just wasn't very, very good. And we'll break into that. We'll also talk about the Devils yesterday, losing 2-1 again, and still having struggles in getting the puck into the net, and kind of took away from what was a great ovation and a good homecoming for Jack Hughes, coming from back from the Olympics. We'll also be looking ahead to the future games, because they definitely have a full slate of games. Devils have, they want to make any type of push. They have four game. They have pretty much four games and five playing in one, and five games just in this 1 week, if you count yesterday, since the Olympic break. And then the Knicks also have four games this week. And this is coming down the down stretch, especially for the Knicks, where playoff seeding is very important. We'll also break into NFL offseason, the Jets, Giants news that we have coming across there. Giants have a new hire in John Harbaugh. We'll be talking about Jackson Dart's development, and also the Giants defense, and to see if it is as good as advertised, and hopefully if it is, we can actually see some playoff football in New York. And as far as for the redheaded stepchild that is the New York Jets, the Aaron Glenn struggles do continue. We'll talk about his superpower and calling defenses, and we'll also talk about the many different changes in coaching and the new trade that came down this afternoon with Jermaine Johnson and Mr. Sweat. So we'll get into more of that, and then also, what is it going to take for Aaron Glenn to possibly survive? We know that it is getting to a point where the wagons have already circled, and if he doesn't have a good year, there might be a firing. Oh, looks like we got a comment here from Spike. Knicks still alive in the East. Best three teams sit Spurs, Thunder, Nuggets, all in the West, and Pistons, I feel, best players in the conference, and but inexperienced. Your thoughts? Oh, thank you so much, Spike. Um, my thoughts are, I think you are right. I do think that the best team in the NBA, as far as play wise, it's definitely all the three top teams in the West. The Nuggets, Thunder, and Spurs. The Knicks, one thing I will say, the Knicks do match up well against the Thunder for some reason. It looks like Mitchell Robinson definitely knows how to make Jokic work for his points. So I would be more in favorable of that matchup. But the Spurs, definitely young with their length and how they've played the Knicks, especially in the um, NBA Cup and the last game in San Antonio. That was pretty wild. That's going to be a hard matchup. And I don't think anybody's beating the OKC Thunder. I think that they are as perfect as can be, and it's going to be based off of the matchup. And hopefully the Spurs can possibly knock them off. We'll see how that worked out. And as far as for the Pistons, I do think that the Pistons are clear cut the best team in the East. They have kind of put everything, you've seen Cade Cunningham put everything together. He's shown up and been a superstar, and we'll see how this season turns out. I definitely am going to be very concerned if the Knicks do face them. So we'll see. We'll see that. And shout out to my guy Spike for commenting in, and then I also see my guy, one of my fraternity brothers, Raw Scout. Thank you so much for chiming in. Knicks match up well on paper. That is okay versus OKC on paper. Oof. No, yeah, we'll see. I do think that the Knicks can match up well with a lot of teams. It's just more of what version of the Knicks team we're getting and what version is kind of being coached. So we'll see. You know a lot about sports, baseball. You told me, uh, definitely. We'll definitely be doing talking a little bit baseball later on and making going over the Mets and Yankee expectations and talking a little bit about the World Baseball Classic. I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing how the first competitive baseball that shows up and on the screen. So definitely want to get into that. And are we getting a non-Yannick? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. So I'm gonna continue on, and then we'll also talk about a little bit about the fight game. There's a UFC fight that I'm kind of interested in talking about, and of course, I'm a big wrestling fan, so WWE is building up for WrestleMania, and I'm a person that loves to talk about the storylines and leading up into it, seeing how the hype is going. So we'll definitely touch on that. And then we've got the Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao match that's happening on my birthday on September 19th. So we'll see how that's gonna turn out. And then last but not least, we have the WNBA talk with updates on the labor and kind of explaining the labor situation and what's going on, and hopefully getting basketball stuff, hopefully seeing hopefully not um causing a delay in the season start, knowing how important and monumental this season is and being how with all the storylines that are pretty much being baked in, it's a very important time to really be making sure that the momentum doesn't stop. So I want to thank you guys for chiming in. Keep the tracks coming in through. We'll be starting off with the Knicks losing to the Cavs, and there's three takeaways that that I wanted to get into. One, of course, and sadly, what does lead the red meat base is the Carl Anthony Towns is inconsistent play. And, there's a lot of New York Knicks fans that I know that I've talked to. They don't like him. He's very soft. And pretty much a lot of the mannerisms, the way he plays on the court, kind of suggest that and hint that. And essentially, how he flails his body, how he uses it, how he complains for every single call when a lot of the times he is getting hit on the contact, but we'll see. But when he has games like this, where it's clear as day, his inconsistent troubles is leading to the Knicks not playing very well and leading to a lackluster performance when Jalen Brunson is not having the best game and when everybody else is kind of, playing defense and trying to, keep the game in a manageable, state. Him disappearing after starting off very hot, it was disappointing. And this is something that when it does rear its ugly head in the playoffs, it is going to be a very huge criticism towards Carl. And we hope that, I hope, because I am one of those defenders of him. I do think that a lot of the I think a lot of the coverage and a lot of the information that gets, told about him can be a little upsetting, but just like anything else, when people already have a made up perception of who you are and what you are, the thing that you have to do is you have to prove them wrong at every single time. And that's pretty much going to be the life that you're going to live pretty much until the end of time, essentially. You have to go out there, continue to do the work, show that you're working hard, and, you know, being lackluster on defense is just not going to get it done. How do you prioritize what to watch and what Yes, very good. Listen, oh, thank you so much, Mike. The way how I'm going to prioritize mostly is when we're in season. That's going to be the teams that will get pretty much prioritized the most. Talking about the in-season events and the games and what's going on within the system, while pretty much showing a little bit of a less prioritization for the teams that are in their off season. But if there is news that come across, I definitely want to touch up on it. Thank you, Spike, for that question. Um, as far as the next thing that I've been seeing, not only is Carl Anthony Towns struggles, it's also the the ball movement and the playing style of the New York Knicks. It's one thing to want to get the win in the regular season and utilize what's the best formula for you to get that win on a day-to-day basis. But there will be times where ISO ball is not going to get it done. And a lot of times from what I see as a fan is when Jalen Brunson does put the ball on and what I call pound the ball to the ground and everything, when that does happen, it does create a situation where 4 or 5 other people are, the 4 others are pretty much standing in a corner and not really doing much. And if the defense is very good, like you're going to see with the Pistons, like you're going to see with the Spurs and OKC and Denver and and all the other elite teams, he's not going to be able to get his shot off all the time. And when he doesn't get his shot off all the time, the the one thing that we can't keep seeing is we can't keep seeing 4 assists a night. I'm at the point where it's like I'm not expecting him to be Steve Nash and get 12 assists a night, but I am expecting to at least get up to 7 to 8 assists and get Carl Anthony Towns involved, get OG Anunoby involved on a couple of open shots, get, Mikal Bridges open, and we'll get to Mikal Bridges as a third point for the and that's gonna as far as what can be done, that's gonna be more on the coaching, Mike Brown, what he does, because it's gonna be very important to make sure that, he finds whatever system, incorporating what was successful with Jim, but also trying to find those pieces and trying to find those sets that can on it that will still be conducive because when we have these advantages, there's no reason for Carl Anthony Towns to be disappearing. And we'll get into Mikal Bridges, but there's no reason for all that. Spike, uh, Cat has to get the ball. That's up to the point guard at the time. A time of travesty that he took 5 shots in the other night, and not a fan of Mike Brown. I thought Tibbs was unceremonious. Let go. Good stuff, Jose. Thank you so much, Spike, for the kind words. And yeah, there are a lot of people, a lot of Knicks fans, especially with Tom Thibodeau. They've gotten very close with him. He was a product, an assistant coach from the 90s and had a lot of connections, had a lot of friends here. And yeah, it does suck when, new players come in. They kind of, they kind of pretty much created a dynamic where they felt that, they felt that needed to be a change. And in certain cases, it might have been seen as undermining, and he was unceremoniously let go after taking them to their highest point. So I definitely understand why certain Knicks fans have that, view. I was more on on the other side where I felt like they needed to be more of trusting in the bench, but you know, ev- um, can't argue with the results. The results were the results, and each year there was an improvement. And for those Knicks fans who are still upset, yeah, and might not think that Mike Brown is the answer, they are gonna pretty much resonate with Tom Thibodeau and how this team was. Then the next part, last part with the Knicks, because I know that we're getting to the end of the first segment here. Last part with the Knicks is Mikal Bridges continues to be a non-factor, and at this point, at this point, we just like how certain players' draft statuses were used against them, the trade is going to be used against them. And not only is the trade going to be used against them, the contract extension that was signed to keep him here is also going to be used against him because that was the investment of giving away 5 first-round picks and then signing him to a very lucrative contract extension to keep him here is gonna be an eyesore, and that's gonna be a situation where I don't know if the Knicks can come back from. He definitely needs to shape up his play. The constant fadeaway shots and the dribbling away from contact is just it's it's not gonna last long. It's not gonna last long, and if he doesn't have a good playoff run like he did last year, where we can honestly say, "Hey, there's something there, and there's something that can, be utilized," he is gonna get a lot of that, um, arrows right after Karl Anthony Towns. So we'll see, how that works out. Um, Just to go over the Devils game real quickly, the New Jersey Devils, reason I wanted to touch on that was because I was definitely watching the USA Olympic hockey team win gold medal in a thrilling game in on that morning, and I kind of gotten into watching hockey again due to my little sister who is in Fort Lauderdale, and she became a huge Panthers fan throughout this winning run. So she's been definitely hockey is her sport and has definitely gotten me into watching it again. And with the emergence of Jack Hughes these last few years, I've definitely got into pretty much watching the Devils a little more and seeing how the season started. It was very hyped, very good. The goals were nonstop, and it looked like we couldn't lose a game. And then after a dinner, Hughes gets hurt, and then all of a sudden we can't score goals, and we haven't been able to score goals since, and it's been a very rough turn where now it doesn't look like the Devils are going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be another frustrating year. And when you see a game like yesterday, where you see the emotions, you see the building already filled out, you see them wanting to welcome their hero, who gets the game-winning goal for the gold medal, and we have a game, and it just once again, we struggle to score, and I think um, Don LaGreca brought up, there was 2 breakaways where they didn't get a shot on goal. That's inexcusable from an offense. So we'll see, how the Devils can somehow change it up. It doesn't look like it's gonna happen this year, but we'll see. They Yesterday was their first game of 5 games in 1 week, so we'll see. We'll see. They'll be starting. They're actually playing. They're going to be getting to face the Penguins tonight, the Blues on Saturday, Florida on Tuesday, which is my sister's team, and then we've got Toronto. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs on next Wednesday. So definitely a full slate of games, and we'll see how they can get this done. As far as for the Knicks, they will have 4 games this week, starting with the Bucks on Friday, the Spurs on Sunday, and Toronto on Tuesday, and then OKC finishing it out with OKC on Wednesday, the next Wednesday. So just wanted to thank you guys. Definitely. Oh yes, uh, Raw stated definitely screwed ourselves with the five first round picks. So definitely, and Bridget, Spike chimed in. Bridges does not like contact. He often is matched up against a player 20 pounds heavier than him, and he doesn't want the uh, contact, and that's why the streak is so long for me. Jose, now just for listen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Spike. And yeah, it is very true. And that's kind of been the thing with the Knicks, lineup and structure. There's sometimes where players are playing out of position. It was one of those things that I used to complain a lot about when RJ Barrett was here as a Knick, constantly at the three position, playing people that were taller and heavier and lankier than him. And, having to fight through those sets and fight through those screens. And now you're seeing Bridges kind of having the same struggle at, playing those bigger, threes because we're seeing and playing the bigger twos and threes, and we're seeing that he's having a struggle, and and especially when you're facing the likes of a Cade Cunningham, who is a very big, tall point guard, and you're going to need OG Anunoby, which then pretty much allows pretty much Bridget and Hart to be either at a mismatch with the big, and that creates a dynamic where hopefully in the future, the Knicks can try to figure something out. Very happy to do it. Thank you again, Spike, for the support, and I really do appreciate it. I do appreciate the kind words. We're gonna take a little. We're gonna switch gears into football right now. With the New York Giants expectation. I know Roll is on here as a big Giant fan. Um, The Gi wanted to hear the fans' expectations. What do they thought of the new hire? We'll also be talking Jackson Dart and the Giants' defense, and how the pieces can come together. So with the with the new hire, I'm actually all for this giant regime. I love the hire of John Harbaugh because this team was in definitely need of a stability, of a culture change, and with a person that they possibly hit on a quarterback and Jackson Dart, you definitely want to make sure that you have the best structure available for him. And Harbaugh does provide that structure. Now, as far as what will happen with Joe Shane, kind of looks like we're already seeing the writing on the wall. Um, Looks like they've already kind of pretty much had that meeting with him. They've already outsourced a lot of his responsibilities to the person that John Harbaugh is more comfortable with, and we'll see. But doesn't look, from what I'm seeing from a Joe Shane standpoint, it doesn't look like he's going to be surviving, anytime past this year. So, could be one of those situations where he'll just be serving out his time. As far as Jackson Dart's development, this is going to be very huge here because the consensus was regarding Jackson Dart's how can I say, his play essentially, and how he's constantly putting himself in bad positions and bad situations where he is essentially injuring himself and getting into a situation where he's getting into concussion protocol. And when you're getting into concussion protocol, you're costing your team when you're out for games. So how can they still be able to develop, that safe, cautious play, but also still have that reckless abandon for him to make the plays down the field that he needs to make? And for the Giants, when it comes to when it comes to the Giant defense, I really am interested to see how this works because Dexter Lawrence had a lot to say about last couple of years. We've got Brooks, who had a great year. Then you've got don't know what's going to happen with Abdul Carter, the Kayvon Thibodeau situation. With that, don't know how that line is going to still form up in shape, and we'll see how it works out because I think Harbaugh and the defensive staff that he's gonna have are gonna have a lot of good young talent, and I do think that this giant team can have a massive turnaround. Young quarterback showed a lot of good promise and good talent with a good receiver coming off, his injury. They definitely need to get more weapons to kind of maximize on Jackson Dart's potential. And if the deep and the issue with the defense is not that they don't have talented players, it's more of what was the schemes that were going on. And since Wink Martindale has left the Giant team, it's been very clear that the Giants are not, getting they didn't get the production on the defense that they were expecting. So hopefully with Harbaugh coming in to the picture, having a new staff and having a new foundation, they can be able to turn this around and have a good season. And I think they can actually make a playoff run if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see with the Giants. I know that New York football has been just very bad over these last few years, and we definitely need change in the right direction. As far as for the New York Jets, man, the New York Jets is my team, and going through this struggle, especially this decade and a half of not making the playoffs, it's just been very miserable. Um, but a lot of this is pretty much the Jets' own doing. A lot of mismanagement over the years. A lot of not knowing when to put your input, not knowing when to not do it, and there have just been a lot of situations where the Jets have kind of made the wrong decisions, and the best intentions will always lead to a path of hell. So we can try to talk ourselves blue in the face of all their past mistakes. It is what it is. All we can do right now is hope that it can get better, but it's miserable, man. It's miserable because we got Aaron Glenn struggling in his first year, and it couldn't go any worse than what it is. 3-14. The defense did not look good under him, under Wilkes. They did not. The offense, and as much as there have been plenty, I've went to plenty of Jet games, and the one thing I disagreed with a lot of Jet fans was the notion that Tanner Eggstrand was a very good offensive coordinator. I was just one of those that I was just like, I'm looking at the plays on the field, I'm looking at the designs, I'm looking at the routes that are being run, and yeah, Justin Fields can't throw the ball, but you can't tell when Tyrod Taylor looks as worse as he did in the Jet uniform, and where he actually looked very competent in his previous stops. To me, that's a little bit on coaching and play calling, and I don't know what was happening. So I was in favor of them letting go of Extra and possibly replacing him with Frank Reich, and we'll see how that turns out. I do think that who they get at quarterback is going to be important, and how they made today's trade with Jermaine Johnson for Tavares Sweat. It's very, very, very shrewd trade. We'll see how it works out. Jermaine Johnson gets to go back to Tennessee with Rob Sala, and Rob Sala pretty much likes his smaller, quicker, faster guys to kind of get to that ball to create that type of San Francisco 49er defense he's created out there. So Jermaine Johnson could definitely get a huge uplift out there. Uh, as far as Sweats, it looks like he's supposed to be a big defensive lineman to kind of fill that gap. We'll see how that works. And I was hoping that the Jets would trade out of the 2 overall spot and maximize on their picks, but seeing how they made this trade, it looks like they're gonna go with the best pass rusher on the board and to replace Jermaine Johnson, and then they've picked up Wilson McDonald's fifth-year option, so they have the other side on that edge rusher to be fine, and we'll see how this works. If they switch to a 3-4, I am in desperate need and looking for a not like an actual outside linebackers that change the game. I'm a Jet fan that grew up with, with Eric Barton and Calvin Pace. And even though those weren't, the top front linebackers in the league, those were linebackers in the league. Those are linebackers on the Jet team that made difference for those couple years in those playoff times. So we'll see how it turns out. But I've always felt like the Jet weakness, especially within the defense, was our linebacking core. Not saying that the people we have now are not good. It was just more of there was just a lot to be desired, and we'll see how that can turn out with the rest of the secondary. Because when you trade away Michael Carter and you trade away Sauce Gardner and you trade away a lot of the other pieces, you're going to need to replace some of those pieces back. So we'll see how the Jet defense can be formed. It's going to be interesting how this draft kind of does this. And as far as the quarterback, I'm not interested in any of the retread quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins doesn't interest me. Derek Carr coming back out of retirement doesn't interest me. Not a lot of trading picks and taking on Kyler Murray's contract doesn't interest me. None of these options interest me, but we'll see how that goes out. And just to ask you guys, for any Jet fans that might be in the chat here, how many wins do you think is gonna be needed in order for Glenn to, keep his job? I think that it's gonna take at least, 6 to 7 wins. You gotta at least, at least double the previous win output and possibly show more wins to kind of get that. And I see Royal had to struggle. Yes, it is a struggle. New York football has been a huge struggle lately. So we'll move on to we're gonna talk baseball. With the Mets expectations, with how this offseason has gone. And as far as for the Mets, it's pretty much pretty much simple. It's playoffs or bust. Like there has to be a playoff appearance. Even with all the losses, you're putting a lot of the onus on the GM and Stearns to kind of make sure that this team is still a viable contender. They did not waste all that money and prying Juan Soto away from the Yankees just to be an average ball club. And when this team didn't make the playoffs, the wholesale changes that they were making was to pretty much try to make improvements and get to that point where they can be over the top. We'll see how this works out. I do think that their approach on starting pitching can be a bit of a detriment. I mean, you definitely need more than just the rookies that are just coming up from your farm system to kind of carry the load. Other than the clean, there's really not a lot for me to have faith as far as within the Mets starting pitching, but we'll see how that works. Hopefully I will be proven wrong because we will see. And I see my little brother, Matthew Rivera, let me go Mets. um, so we'll see how this turns out. I think that the Mets definitely need to be a playoff team. And if they're not a playoff team, there's got to be some type of concerned regarding the roster and how it's being built, because the investment and the promise and trying to make sure that this team wins a title and how much money the owner, Cohen, has thrown in there, you got to be making sure that, win this. Right. Soto's not getting younger, Lindor's not getting younger. That would be able to, capitalize and, and then also the fan base. You want to make sure that, Citi Field is, crowded. And as much as it was empty on a winning year, it was definitely crowded during last year. So you got to make sure. I got true story. Let's go Jets, and the Jets should have kept Sam Darnold. Oh man, yeah. I'm a person. A lot of people don't really like that talk, but I'm a person that's all about it. I definitely was a believer in Sam Darnold's talent, and yeah, and if I was to play my own revisionist history game, I could definitely put myself in a situation where he would be a lot better. But sadly, Joe Douglas, and this is what happens when sometimes there's a little bit of ego, a little bit of, wanting everything their way. And you sometimes you don't get to, properly evaluate, the things that go on between the ears. And Sam Darnold definitely had the toughness and the mental fortitude to deal with adversity and go through different teams and different locations and still be able to do his thing. So yeah, Jets will always find a way to make it wrong. Um, as far as for the Yankee expectations, to me, the Yankee expectations is always going to be World Series or bust. I grew up at a time where the Yankees were the preeminent franchise, and you can say I'm spoiled from the '90s, and that was all true because my first memory of the Yankees was the 1993 season. So, um, and that was pretty much how I got introduced, and then went to my first Yankee game in '94, and then pretty much been a fan ever since. And it's been these last few years have been very entertaining. We did make the World Series, but the problem is that they put the team together. The problem is their mission statement. It is championship or bust. But I think the bigger overall problem is the issue of how they're actually being run as an organization. And we're at the point where we saw the Lakers and the Bus family eventually pretty much stole the Lakers and the brand for what it is and sold it to an investment group. And sadly, with the Yankees, it's possibly getting to that time. Like the running a brand like the Lakers, the Yankees, or the Cowboys, or one of these franchise marquee brands, it takes more than just running it like a mom and pop shop. And since MLB is not like the NFL where everything is all shared, and shared equal to the last dollar, where the Jacksonville Jaguars make as much as the Cowboys, you're gonna still see these have and have nots, and they've made strides over the years to try to level the playing field. But when you have the Toronto Blue Jays and the Rogers Corporation kind of pretty much buy the players that they needed to buy this offseason and compete with the Dodgers. You have the Dodgers still pretty much using their unlimited spending and unlimited checkbook and finding what I call a genius loophole. At the end of the day, they took advantage of the loophole, and we can get mad all we want. They were the first ones to kind of set it up that way, and they were able to find the players to actually take those delays on payment. So we'll see. But also and then you also have the Mets. And so you have big spenders that are coming from environments that make way more millions of dollars, and it's reduced the Yankees into being more of a mom and pop shop. And if you want to win in today's MLB, and what the Dodgers are pretty much showing you is you're not going to beat us with running your organization like a mom and pop shop did. And it is what it is. As long as Steinbrenner gets to uh, pretty much I'm not going to blame Steinbrenner because at the end of the day, he's got to do what he's got to do. But there's a lot of issues with Cashman, how the Yankee analytics have kind of driven the philosophy and how they've gotten away from actual, putting the ball in play, putting actually making contact, getting a high on base percentage, and not just focusing on one determinate stat, OPS or anything like that. It's just, baseball is baseball. We all grew up watching it, how to play it. And you just know that even though baseball has changed over the years, right now, the way the Yankees are playing it, it just doesn't look like the team that's going to win the World Series at the end of the year, which is why there's a frustration. And the frustration only gets amplified because you're dealing with a team that has not had a championship, but is being told since we make the playoffs every year, we should just be happy with that. And that's not how Yankee fans are, sadly. And we're going to see how it works out. And um, it hopefully this season's gonna be a little bit better, and we'll see how Jives Chisholm does. We'll see how Aaron Judge does, and we'll see how, the rotation comes together. And all we can do is try to be positive, but we cannot be surprised if there's a hot start and then all of a sudden it's, you know, having a monsoon or a downfall in June and July, and then we're struggling to, keep our playoff eligibility from August to September. That if we're cutting into that type of storyline again, then eventually Yankee fans are going to be frustrated because it does seem like the definition of insanity. Get it going, Jose. Thank you, Lonnie. Lonnie from Harlem checking in. And as far as for the fight game, we have a few. There is a UFC 326 card that is happening on March 7th, Holloway versus Oliveira 2. I'm definitely going to be talking more about that fight as we get closer to it, especially next week. Holloway is definitely my little brother's favorite fighter. Definitely a champion, been kicking people all around throughout the UFC, and this is a big fight against Oliveira. So we're gonna see, gonna be breaking that more down and trying to see how the excitement and the tenor of the fight. And also we've got as far as for the WWE, it's building up for WrestleMania. There's a lot of storylines. There's the Roman Reigns CM Punk storyline. We know that we've got the Elimination Chamber coming out to try to, figure out the other championship match. And there's a few more surprises with WrestleMania as we know that leads into it. Very excited for it. It's kind of cool to actually, be hyped up for a WrestleMania. Um, can't really say that for last year. I was not very thrilled about last year's WrestleMania going into it. This year's definitely has a bit of a different feel and a different big time coming to it, from the promos to the promotion and everything else that goes with it. So I'm definitely going to be interested to see how that breaks down. And then we've also got now, when it comes to boxing, and this is the sad state of affair of boxing, Floyd Mayweather has agreed to do a fight with Manny Pacquiao on September 19th, and it's going to be their second fight. And apparently, this is going to be a legitimate fight, which I am just like laughing because I still remember that movie with, well, little story. Lonnie, the Boone Monsoon happens every year, basically. Yes, that is true. And I've got Chimbo, one of my fraternity brothers, boxing is dead. Yes. Right now, I remember this movie with Robert De Niro and Sylvester Stallone, where they were these old guys trying to, relive a boxing rivalry, and it was just well, it was a funny movie, but it was just, that's what I looked at this Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fight. This is a fight that doesn't need to happen, but it just shows the sad state of affairs that, there's not a lot of boxing stars. I did watch the Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez fight, and as much as I like Shakur Stevenson and like him as as a boxer and a talent, there is a bit of lackluster ability when it comes to star power. And there's a lot of people that um, didn't walk away with thinking that, that's the next superstar. And that's gonna been so when you see Floyd Mayweather kind of come back, or when you see the old heavyweights do these freak show fights, it kind of pretty much shows the state of affair of boxing where they're still struggling to get new stars. And you know, you just saw Canelo come off of a loss with Bud Crawford, and Crawford has just retired. So it just creates this situation where it's like, what's out there next? And I don't know where boxing is going to be going, but it is always going to still be around. But as far as matches like this is always going to happen because if Floyd Mayweather wants to keep fighting, they're gonna keep giving them the money. And if Manny Pacquiao, who is pressing for money and still needs to keep fighting, he's going to keep doing it. And since those are the two pretty much still semi names left in boxing, apparently they're gonna do it again for a second time. And I'm I'm gonna watch it. It's on my birthday. It will give me something to do, and and create an event out of it and watch a boxing event. But we'll see how. I don't see this as being an entertaining fight, but who knows? We might actually get that boxing movie that I was referencing. We'll see. Um, Now moving on to what's been going on. And last but not least, we'll be talking about the WNBA labor issues. Now, there's a lot of layers that go along with it because the owners and the WNBA union is essentially in a labor negotiation, and they're trying to make sure that it doesn't affect, the season status and what the pretty much the players are fighting for is for more wages, better processes, and better training, better travel accommodations. We've seen them come a long way in offering some of those facilities and offering some of those things. But the issue is always going to come down to money. And when the money is where it's at, they're going to, right? We there's gonna be a feeling that more has to be done. And more has to be divvied out. And I can't disagree with it because when you're seeing that this is not a situation where we can separate one superstar and just say that person's the real reason. This is a situation where that one superstar is part of the league, and that one superstar is generating a huge interest, a huge fan base, and is generating a lot of money and a lot of eyes. And the momentum really can't be under any circumstances, can't really be afforded to be messed with. And the what I find is the covering of it, which is we'll get to more, but the issue from management side is revenue versus the salary cap, how much they're going to be actually taking home. And this is the first year in its reported in its history where they've actually made a profit off of this year. So there's going to be an issue with how that money is being divvied out. And then also there's the expansion economics as well, because they have just announced that 3 new teams will be pretty much opening. And with that, that means 3 new teams, more roster spots, more money being divvied out. And for the people on the player side, if there's more teams and more rosters being divvied out and more money being divvied out, then eventually, if you can afford the progress of 3 teams and make sure that those 3 teams are long-term viable options based off of the attention that Caitlin Clark is getting, then a lot of the people in that union are going to start looking at it and saying, well, if we're starting to make a profit, we're starting to make all of this money, and and things are starting to turn in the right direction, then they're going to want to cash out. And that's going to be a perfectly legitimate, reason. And for the people that have for the women that have put this league together, it's something that they should be fighting for, more of. And I think the way the coverage has gone has gotten very divisive based off of perception, and the perceptions are based off of people who pretty much have gotten used to covering this league a certain way and having a certain tone and having a certain temperament towards this league for the last 30 years. It's still going to come off as you shouldn't be the players union shouldn't be really fighting for anything, and that they should just be thanking, somebody else for their successes and achievements, and you know, just pretty much, accept whatever the owners are doing, which is, we all know that doesn't work in any type of labor negotiations. It's give and take. And we're going to see how, more comes out, because the revenue share is a big thing. How that profit and how much that money is going to be divvied out, and how much the owner get and how much the player get is going to determine how the deal gets done. The travel standards, there was a time where they had to travel like every other person, and now it's definitely made an improvement. And the marketing investments, where you're seeing that, and it's been proven wrong. As much as, certain media people would like to say that it's one person that's really driving the boat, you're seeing, the endorsements and, money that Aja Wilson and Angel Reese and a few others, like Sabrina Ionescu, you see the endorsements and the money that they're able to pull in. So this is not just a one-star league. This is a up and coming league that's had a few stars that were just waiting on the cusp, and seeing Caitlin Clark come on the scene, and now with Paige Beakers, it's only going to be a league that's going to continue to grow and continue to be uh, a large league. So we'll see how things turn out. Um, the One of the things I will say is the uncomfortable truth is what I call the media bias and the selective outrage. And also is the coverage proportional to the league's growth? We see that the league is growing, and even with the numbers drop due to Caitlin Clark's injury woes, you still saw that the league still had growth in this year where they were able to make a profit for the first time. So it's gonna keep happening. It's gonna keep growing, and eventually there is gonna be a time where people are going to talk about the WNBA and they're going to actually break down the actual game and not, the, easy talk of, oh, they don't like her, or they don't like this person, or or the lead is, inherently something else where people are kind of projecting their feelings a lot, to be honest. And that's just the honest talk a lot on it. As far as the expectations that I have for this season, I think it's going to be a great season. Um, we're going to see Caitlin Clark come back healthy, and that Indiana team is going to be trouble. Like that team, because as me watching from a Liberty fan perspective, watching the New York Liberty over the years, Indiana is definitely one of those teams to look out for. With Kelsey Mitchell, with the Leah Boston, with all their players and how they've kind of dramatically improved and made a great run last year without Caitlin Clark, they're definitely primed to make a championship run. So we'll definitely see how this works out for them. Um, as far as the Liberty, the season is set to start on May 9th. Is the championship window still open for the Liberty? Is the question that I have to ask, our fans out there. And because we saw the Las Vegas Aces kind of come back into championship form, won the championship last year. And with the Liberty, they got bounced in the first round on a tough matchup with the team that eventually lost to the Aces in the finals. So is that championship window still open for them? They made a lot of investments. They let go of their coach and Brandello to pretty much set up a new vision and a new voice in the locker room, and we'll see how it works out. But seeing how the season ended last year, it was definitely a tough way to go out, a tough bitter pill to swallow, especially when you were trying to vie for a repeat and try to create your own destiny. But this is the year where they can possibly come out. They started off very strong, and then they had a couple of injuries with John Paul Jones, and then, you know, we kind of lost a little bit of our defensive tenacity. And then by the time the season started, by the time the postseason started, we kind of found ourselves in a dogfight and losing in a 5-game series. So there's a lot of things that we need to kind of work on throughout the season. And I'm definitely going to be interested in for this season and seeing how it goes. And I see here, Chimbo put in work in progress, in my opinion. Yes, a lot of it is going to be a work in progress. So we'll see how this works out. Um, so, uh, just wanted to get those thoughts out there. And now, so is the one last question, closing question, is the WNBA entering its biggest turning point in league history? I think that that's kind of a misnomer question. I think that's a yes, but just wanted to hear you guys on what you guys thought because of the advantage and seeing that. Oh, true story. How do you like the JJ trade to the Titans? We'll see how it works. I do like the trade because if you told me who would I want to sign, Jermaine Johnson or Will McDonald, seeing this year from what I saw live, Will McDonald definitely had more of the total package as far as what we needed on at that defensive end position. So that's why I'm all for it. We get a person that can play the defensive tackle position for with the from the Titans, and Jermaine Johnson can be able to pretty much start off his career at a fresh start with the Titans with his old coach. So I did like the trade. We'll see how it works out, and we'll see what they do. And this definitely means that they're going to use their second overall pick to get a pass rusher. Uh, I could be wrong. I'm not gonna say it's all right, but we'll see. And we'll put in yes at this point for the WNBA. Yes, absolutely at this point for the WNBA. No, yeah, definitely big things happening and wanting to make sure that we definitely talk about these things. So wanted to thank everyone in the chat. You guys were definitely fantastic. Pretty much went over the topic. If you guys don't have anything else in the chat that you guys wanted me to ask, I'll definitely keep it on for a few more moments. But thank you guys for signing in and playing in. So shout out to my fraternity brothers, shout out to my family, my little brother signing in. Shout out to the company that definitely came in, Ronnie, and shout out to Spike. Thank you guys for really engaging and helping me on along with this process on what is the first episode of the Apito Zone. And we're gonna continue to do this. Our everyday my plan for consistency is to make this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. to kind of give you guys the consistency, and also not to make it too late, because I know if I make it at 10, after a couple of games, it might might get a little bit people frazzled with the lateness and everything. So every Wednesday 7 p.m. is what I'm looking for, and I'll be setting up a schedule to get that out, and we'll kind of recap what the biggest sports topics and highlights and what we can go over. And thank you guys again for signing in and chiming in. Who would get the second overall pick and the 16th overall pick if he was the Jet GM? Oh, sorry, true story. This is why I'm not the Jet GM, but I think that they're going with the best pass rusher, and I think if I were the GM, I would possibly use that 16th pick on a linebacker. We definitely had definitely I feel like have been weak at that linebacker position, but that's something there. Or I could see them going safety in that 16 spot, depending on how it goes. And if and this is where I'm hoping that they don't do, but if they do like a quarterback that might be a late first rounder, I could see them kind of going in there. Inside out or middle, I would say an outside linebacker, left outside linebacker, or right outside linebacker. I was mentioning earlier, true story, that I I grew up with the Mo Lewis's and with those type of linebackers, and I grew up with Eric Barton and Calvin Pace on the side. So it definitely makes a huge difference on the linebackers that they have on this core. And that was the one thing that I pretty much was very vocal during the Rob Sala years, with how we were doing our linebacking core. So I wanted to say that. And all right, and thank you, Timbo, with the flex. Thank you so much, and thank you guys. And have a great one. Shout out to the company. Shout out to all the people that have been helping me. People, certain hosts on ESPN, certain hosts on WFAN, giving me confidence and the encouragement to kind of get this up and started. And I'm glad that we were able to do that. So thank you guys. And this was a fun experience and we'll try to keep this going. Thanks.